Tammy Mack from Radio Free 102.3 KJLH Los Angeles, and welcome to a series of podcasts that dive into what it means to be Black today and how we can overcome many issues facing the Black community, all compliments of Black infant health. Today's series is It's All About Us. It's about all of us. A discussion about why and how socioeconomics play no part in the matter of Black birth disparity. Please meet our panelist, Danielle Abe, Program Coordinator, Black Infant Health Sacramento. Hi, Danielle.
Hi.
Allison Workman, Black Infant Health Group Facilitator, San Diego. Hello, Allison.
Good morning. Good morning.
Cynthia Holland, Contra Costa. I said it wrong again. Contra Costa, Black Infant Health Program Coordinator. But I won't get your name wrong, Cynthia. Hi, Cynthia.
Good morning.
And Yolanda Jones Rogers, Black Infant Health Program Coordinator, Los Angeles County. So
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's stay with you here, Yolanda. What is the definition of socioeconomics? What does it mean?
Okay, so breaking that word apart, again, socio connected to social, and again, I just want to talk plainly to all the people that will be tuning in or coming to our website. The social environment, the parts around us. And of course, the second half of that word talks about economics. That's about our money piece, right? So it's about joining those two pieces together. And of course, we have, academia, the world that studies how these two pieces interact with one another and how those forces interact on us as African-American women in Black maternal health.
Danielle, can you give us an explanation of socioeconomics? Because before we get into it, I want to make sure that everyone knows what it means.
Yeah, sure. Socioeconomics is kind of like how you live, right? Socio is your work, it's your education. It really is kind of like the policies that impact Black lives. So the socioeconomics, there's barriers that impact Black families from being on par with the rest of America.
Allison, what about you? The definition.
Co-signing what my colleague said, but also maybe looking at the intersections of how education, income, and also wealth. So I think we'll probably get into some of the distinctions between income and wealth, but how all those factors are working together to impact our health.
Yeah, definitely. Cynthia.
I would say the same thing, a lot of what my colleagues are saying, but it's the intersection between where we live, work, and play and our economic status as far as our money wealth goes, or that lack thereof. That makes a difference in how we as Black women relate to the world with our finances.
So before we get into the birth disparities, is it true that amongst American ethnicities, Black people are the poorest? Is that a true statement?
I wouldn't say that it's a true statement that Black women are the poorest. I would just say that
I'm saying the Black community. Is the Black community the poorest of ethnicities in America?
Yes, based on the stats. We are. Based on the history we know from slavery. Absolutely.
Yeah. So with that in mind, most people think that the birth rate disparities or the immortality rates are low because of the way socioeconomics play in America. But as I've done these series and I've worked with the Black Infant Health Program myself for the last couple of years, we find that socioeconomics plays absolutely no part in these childbirth disparities. And that is shocking to me because many say that the reason why some people suffer the way that they live in the definitions that you all have explained socioeconomics in is because of their educational background or the lack thereof, or it's because of where they live in poorer neighborhoods. And so the government doesn't necessarily care for them the way that they would care for someone who's educated, well educated, or for someone who's wealthy. But that is simply not the truth when it comes to a Black woman in the hospital about to give birth to a child. Can you please explain this to me, Danielle?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. This is what I call my life's work, is helping to change these birth disparities. And I would use myself as a case study. I have a master's degree. I went to UC Berkeley for undergrad. And so the more educated you are, as you said, as a Black woman, you're in a higher risk pool for having a poor birth outcome. And so, yeah, for Black women, it doesn't matter if you're rich, if you're poor, it doesn't matter who you are. You're just more likely to have a low birth weight baby or premature baby. And that's because of there's so many what do you call it, resources or article research being done to show it's systemic racism.
Mhm.
That's the difference.
So how exactly, Cindy, how exactly does systemic racism play a part in these birth disparities?
Well, I assert that it's structural racism and it's powerful social determinants of maternal health. It has roots definitely solely in our historical system of oppression and devaluing of the Black woman and women of color in particular. And it persists today in a more subtle healthcare, and it plays out in our healthcare policies and practices that Black women aren't listened to, and that we don't experience pain, and that we need to do better in our healthcare system so that we can have better birth outcomes for our Black moms and babies.
Allison, as a group facilitator, what are Black women saying when they experience childbirth? What are they saying that is happening that isn't supposed to? What are they saying that isn't happening that or that is that isn't happening that is supposed to?
I think that they're not feeling listened to. Their voices aren't being respected in the same way. There's also a lot of stories that I see and hear in our groups, anecdotally, where women preemptively understand that sometimes the medical community is making a lot of assumptions about them. So I've heard stories from women who make sure when they go in for their prenatal appointments that their wedding ring is prominent, right? Because of the assumption
Yes, is that we're not married.
Any Black pregnant woman is unmarried, or all the stereotypes that are attached with Black pregnancy. And so they're making these protective moves so that they get the quality of care that they should expect, every woman should expect, even to the way we prepare ourselves and the way we dress. So all these subtle things that we do to navigate the harms of the assumptions that are made about us before we come into that doctor's office sometimes.
Look, I would wear a wedding ring even if I weren't married. It's like you have to walk into the doctor's office with your college degree. You have to walk in with your income verification, your credit score, and your wedding ring. And if you can bring your husband along, that would help too. That is sad. But you know what's even sadder is that there are white women who don't have husbands who have children as well. So why is it that Black women get pegged with being single mothers more than? Are statistics suggesting that we are the higher rate of single mothers? And anyone can take that question.
Oh, I just think that's the lens that society sees us through. That's, what do you call that? Stereotyping. And it's unfortunate. And we need to break those stereotypes.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. It's an unfortunate stereotype because it's the white man is the reason why we lose our fathers. Okay. But maybe
yes.
But y'all don't want to hear that. Okay.
But that's okay.
Don't get me started.
Wait a minute. We're in the choir here. It's the choir.
Right, exactly. Right. But that's part of that legacy, again, of racism. And that's why it's so important what we're doing in Black women health and why we want to share this information, because there is a direct connection of what racism has done, how it has objectified the Black body, male body, Black body, women's Black bodies, and how through that lens, again, we are where we are in terms of Black maternal health. And so it is very important for us as a people to understand the impact of racism on our lives. And it has direct impact, and that people understanding that they're not poor, but there really is a system that was devised to have us in a state of poverty, not because we lack anything. We had the brains, we had the ingenuity. America was built on our backs. We were able and have always been able to contribute here. Actually, they haven't taken it far enough. They've shortchanged themselves in America because it could have been better than it is. And we have been allowed to fully participate in this system. And we were not allowed to do that. And we still have that legacy today. And again, using racism as a stress, those stressors compounding us in multiple ways. Again, some of the examples in terms of, we're going to the medical center. Yes, I might have a medical card, but to be able to present that card should be seen as a passport to me accessing medical service. Everybody should stand up and cheer. But for me to pass that as a Black woman, that medical card across that counter, to be met with such disdain, like, I've got the, answers on the final exam, but somehow I shouldn't be able to have this passport, this access to health. It's a shame. And that's the legacy of supremacy in this country. So no matter which way we turn, no matter how many degrees we have, I can have a GED, a PhD. I can, make minimum wage, or I can have a 6-figure salary. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It is about that legacy of looking at devaluing this container that shows up, as African American in this country.
Yeah, Michelle Obama is the most educated first lady. I'm speaking factually. She is the first lady with the most degrees in the ever to be in the White House, and they treated her as if she should have never had those degrees.
Come on.
When we talk about socioeconomics, and as I'm talking about our first lady, Michelle Obama, it makes me want to go into how we have these celebrities who have had to deal with these horrible childbirth experiences in the hospital. And we've talked about Beyonce, we've talked about Meghan Markle, we've talked about Serena Williams. These are women who not only have a high salary or a high income bracket above most of the people who are the richest, but they are also have extreme success in their careers, and they're well known globally, not just nationally. How is it that someone like that can experience something that a regular average school teacher or firewoman or policeman or any other person with a skilled job, how could they experience the same thing as we regular folk, as I'd like to call us? How is that possible?
Right. Well, because they're Black. I mean, let's keep it real. And even though you get richer, the truth is, when you look at kind of the studies, they experience more pressure because they're more outside of their community. So they don't have that kind of buffering and protectiveness. I mean, their microaggressions.
That's an interesting concept, Danielle. I don't explain that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Well, say everybody faces microaggressions, right? But like, I'm from Detroit, so my level of growing up with microaggressions was really non-existent because I was surrounded by the Black community. Hence, you step outside of that. I come to California, and so that's a new experience. So I don't know Serena Williams personally, but I'm just saying, when I look at her, she's interacting more outside of maybe her what we call village, right? So then she's gonna experience more levels of stress. But you didn't ask this, but I just wanted to add, I think also what we're lacking is just information, education, resources. That's what Black Infant Health delivers. But sometimes you got to go upstream. And when I say upstream, you look at our history, we have had Black midwives, our granny midwives. We have had care during the maternal health, and the birth outcomes were better. So I'm a strong advocate of increasing the midwifery workforce. And if we can have more Black midwives, and I just want to say that because I have a personal experience. I had a Black midwife. I didn't have a Black midwife, but I had a midwife. And my children were born at home and my outcomes were good. But just to get the flip side, I started in the hospital and my husband was with me present. And the quick and dirty was I was disrespected in front of him in the hospital. And it caused a lot of trauma for me. So to me, that's one of the solutions. I don't know if you were asking for solutions, but I think
Well, how, when you say
for.
disrespected, what does that mean? How so? Give us an example. I want women who are watching this, because sometimes we don't really know what disrespect is. Sometimes we think it's a part of how the doctor should respond based on his experience.
Well, we started with fertility, and we did our testing. And so I was seeing the doctor regularly, so I had everything done. But going into the appointment, they said we need to do a PAP. And I said, I just have one. I don't want one. And the medical assistant said, okay. And I can hear her talking down the hall. So the nurse practitioner comes in and says, we're going to do this and that. And you're going to get a PAP, or I understand you don't want one. And she said, okay. They proceed to do the exam. My husband is present. She said she was checking my ovaries and so forth. And I get to the car before we put the keys in. I said, something didn't feel right. Because I just kept thinking, how could she check my ovaries? You know what a PAP feels like, and the speculum is super heavy.
Yeah.
And I called her back right away. I said, oh, benefit of doubt. Perhaps you didn't hear me when I said I didn't want to have that done. She said, I heard you. And that just floored me. Like, that made me tremble. She's, that speaks for itself. And I wrote a letter. I was called by the chief, and he was like, oh, we're sorry that happened. But nothing happened though. Like, I'm traumatized. That's an assault. And what were the repercussions? So that's my story. And
and like I said, I wouldn't have considered it disrespectful, and I'm sure a lot of other women wouldn't either, because we think the doctor knows best. But I know that what the Black Infant Health program does more than anything else is teach women how to advocate for themselves, which I believe we need to know in all areas of the medical industry, because just not being pregnant and going to the hospital is almost a traumatic situation. So I can't imagine going into the hospital pregnant and being disrespected. So how is it that you advocate or teach women how to advocate in those group sessions, Allison?
I think one of the things we actually focus on is we talk about the principle of Kujichagulia, right? Speaking for yourselves, really honoring our own knowledge and expertise from our lived experiences. And just to kind of add on to what Danielle was saying about the way we actually know in our bodies and experience what we experience in our lives. During the pandemic, something that we explore in our sessions, that your hood is your health, became so real for me, right? So I felt like, hey, I live in a pretty walkable community. We talk about, certain neighborhoods with certain zip codes have lower life expectancies. I know this, I live this. But during the pandemic, what I learned is that your Black body can make that neighborhood less healthy for you. It's not just the neighborhood, it's how we experience it.
That's so good. Yes.
If I walk out, I live close to the beach, beautiful, like well-resourced San Diego. But when I went walking, I had the stress of wondering, when white supremacist terrorism was on the rise, like, is somebody going to harm me?
Right.
And so that beautiful, relaxing walk to the ocean was not so relaxing for me when I had to think about what back streets do I walk behind so that somebody doesn't scream the N-word to me, which happened several times? Should I go on less well-traveled routes so that I'm safer from those people? Or does that mean I have no witnesses to scream in for help if I need something? And so these are the kind of like little micro processings that we have to do all the time when just taking a walk. And if I'm considering the safety of a child, do I let them skateboard out this wonderful, safe, well-resourced neighborhood? Or am I also stressing every time they go for a bike ride that like harm could come to them? So
Yeah.
those are the ways that the same exact healthy neighborhood is not so healthy in the same way for us.
That's so good. Just the question, do you live here, is stressful.
Mm.
And
You
Black folk are
belong
asked
here.
that all of the time.
All of
And it's always the assumption that we don't and you do. Why don't I get to ask you that question? Do you live here? Is what I need to know. Yeah, Yolanda, I want to talk about, because Danielle talked about midwives, and I do know that the Black Infant Health Program champions doulas and midwives. Why is it that the experience may be better than what women initially thought when it comes to being in the hospital versus those doulas and midwives?
The experience is better, again, even piggyback, following behind what Allison talked about, this sense of isolation. I don't mean like we feel like we're on islands, but in terms of fully living out this Black expression, where's the safety of being able to do that, in the maternal health setting? So having that companion, that doula, in this process with me, and that's whether you're a first-time mom or fifth-time mom, right? But to have that person there, that's your confidant, right? Your sister friend that's in this with you, it's nothing like having a partner. It's nothing like having that security of someone else while you turn your whole thoughts inward, like, oh, I got to get through that contraction. Someone else there could be monitoring the environment, and doing surveillance for you. And so just that partnership, providing that comfort that says, I got somebody else on watch while I'm concentrating on what I'm going through. So again, all of us we were all made for community, but to be African American, to always have to be hyper vigilant about every situation I'm in, it is absolutely stressful, and it's taxing, and it's more burden than we should be bearing, in this country. And we want to just have a brave baby, bring new life, bring in the next generation like other mothers do. That's a happy occasion. But to be able to go in a medical setting and not be able to have just that relaxed feeling that I'm here for this job and this one job only today, but to be able to have that, again, that doula or a midwife present to help you get through this journey, just provides us that security and, that comfort that we so deserve and is needed in order for us to travel through, the maternal health process.
Yeah. Cynthia, I want you to talk about that too, because a lot of people kind of think people are crazy who don't want to have their babies in the hospital. But when you hear Black women talk about how traumatic these hospital births are, and then today, especially after a pandemic, they're not allowing people in the hospital with you. So you can't have your tribe with you while experiencing childbirth. You can't have your husband, your sister, your mother, and your father. You got to pick one. But if you have it at home, if you have it with a doula or a midwife, guess what? You get to have whoever you want in the comforts of your own home. You get to have the people who love you and who are close to you. I'm talking about it, but Cynthia, go ahead.
I would say typically, no matter what hospital you're birthing at, you're alone if you haven't brought a companion person or someone with you. The nurses and doctors check in on you during the process because they're monitoring who knows how many other moms that are birthing at the same time that you are. So to have somebody to be there by your side to help you through it, to know that you're not alone. And I've sat with lots of moms that had to birth alone, which is why I became a doula myself, is because I was holding hands and sitting with moms, and this should be the best time of your life, right? You're having a baby, you're bringing this life into this world, but you're birthing alone with no support or in no village around you. So just to have that person, and statistically midwives and doulas cut the rate of cesareans by 35%. Just because they don't have to have all these other interventions, because we're soothing the mom, you're talking to them, you're encouraging them, and you're allowing that oxytocin to flow. The body knows what to do. And the mom, if you can keep them stress-free and you can keep them focusing on themselves and going within and with breathing and all the other comfort measures that are being given by a midwife or doula, it just helps the process along. And being able to talk to them, and they can understand when the doctors and nurses are talking at them instead of talking to them, and all these big, acronyms and words that they're using, and they're not explaining it, then we can go into and say, this is what they're talking about, or take the time. She doesn't understand this. It's okay to ask questions. Oftentimes we feel intimidated by that, and we don't ask the questions, and things are done to us, and we don't even know what procedures are being done to us without our permission. And, they scare you, the baby's heart rate is dropping. That's normal, as long as it's, they're pushing the contractions makes that happen. It's the issue is if they don't go back up after the contraction. So just having that village, and if you don't have a village, just having that one support person makes a grave difference in your birth outcomes and your maternal, after you have your baby.
Because so most people think that having a doula or a midwife is expensive. How does Black Infant Health help women with that?
So I'm proud to say that right now for Contra Costa County, we are launching our own doula program. So right now we have 15 fellows that are training to be community doulas. And I'm excited to say that I'm part of the training going along with these doulas, and each and every one of our Black Infant Health moms will receive a free doula. So they'll get support during their prenatal term, during their labor and delivery, and their postpartum. So I'm really excited about this because we've shown, statistics have shown that this has really been working, and we may get doulas paid for through the Medi-Cal system. So we're hoping, the Momnibus Act is on the board, and we're hoping that goes through. And right now, Anthem Blue Shield is offering free doula services to all of their members, Medi-Cal or not. So this is, we're on the right track, and I'm really excited about what's to come.
Well, thank you. I'm excited. Go ahead, Danielle. Did you want to wrap?
Oh, no, I just completely agree with what she said. And in Sacramento, through our Perinatal Equity Initiative, which is our sister program, we're going to be launching scholarships for Black midwifery students to be trained. So we're all about by and for serving our community. And I know that that's where changes can begin.
Los Angeles has a doula program too. Go ahead, Tammy.
Go ahead.
I just want to put my plug for LA. LA also has a doula program.
That how many women I'm actually seeing and hearing of women in our group are now asking us, what are the steps to become a doula? So as the attention around this issue rises, we're seeing women who are having lived experiences wanting to come back and do that work. And it just brings us so much joy, because the power and the magic of Black Infant Health, to me, our groups, is women come together across class, right? Mm-hmm. And the magic of that is that each one of us, it feels like, has a puzzle piece. So in this discussion, I do not want to invisibilize the fact that poor and working class women are bringing so much insight and profound genius to the table about this issue. But each one of us, when we start talking together, it feels like we get a better understanding about what we are collectively facing. Mm-hmm. And we're not all facing, it shows up in different ways, manifests in different ways. But when we get together and we start talking about it, not only do we understand what this monster is, but we start talking about ways we are going to protect ourselves and each other. And so when women want to become doulas themselves after just experiencing a birth, that just brings my heart so much joy. And I'm seeing more and more of that.
That's the power of that Black girl magic, but it's also the power of the Black Infant Health program. So I thank you, ladies, for doing the work that you do and serving the community in the way that you do. We love it. And we hope that this becomes so widespread that we need more doulas and more women start having babies and enjoying the experience. But thank you for leading us in that direction. Okay, everybody, this concludes our series for today. And thank you so much for being here. I'm Tammy Mack from Radio Free 102.3 KJLH, Los Angeles. Bye, ladies.